When I opened the back door that morning, coffee in hand, the first thing I noticed wasn't the missing ladder. It was the silence. The kind that doesn't belong in a yard where a child once laughed, where sawdust once floated in the summer air, where memories still echoed in the branches. Then I saw it, the wreckage. Splintered red and blue planks littered the grass like shrapnel. One of Caleb's walkie-talkies lay cracked in half by the tree stump. The tree itself, 100-year-old sycamore, had gouges near its base, deep, angry ones, like someone had taken a chainsaw to its heart. I dropped my mug. It shattered on the deck. My legs moved on their own as I stumbled closer, each step peeling back the disbelief. The railing had been ripped from the platform. The rope ladder was gone entirely. The trapdoor, gone. The nameplate Caleb had painted with shaky 8-year-old hands, the watchtower, was lying in the dirt, snapped clean through the middle. It wasn't dismantled. It was executed. A voice broke the silence behind me. It was unsafe, and it blocked our view. I turned slowly. Gregory Burgess stood on his side of the property line, pristine in khakis and a pressed blue shirt, like always. His wife, Mary, clutched their miniature poodle like it was a baby. She avoided my eyes. Gregory didn't flinch. "You should have gotten a permit." I stared at him. I don't even remember what expression I had on my face. I just remember my fingers curling into fists. My dad would have said something then. Something short, something sharp. But I didn't say anything, not yet. Gregory turned, whistled for the dog, and walked back toward his perfectly trimmed hedges. I stood there until my coffee-soaked sock turned cold. My pulse thundered in my ears. My eyes went back to the tree, back to what was left of the thing my son and father had built together. It wasn't just a treehouse. It was time. It was therapy. It was ours. And Gregory took it apart like it was garbage. We moved to Maplewood Heights after the divorce. I needed quiet. Caleb needed room to be a kid. The house was modest, 2 bedrooms, but the backyard was big, wild, and filled with possibility. There was a massive sycamore that towered above everything. My dad called it a gift. 6 months later, Dad moved in, said his apartment was too quiet. Truth is, I think he just missed the sound of a hammer in his hand. He started taking Caleb outside on weekends, pulling scrap wood from the garage, setting up sawhorses. What I thought would be a simple fort turned into 5 weekends of engineering. Leveling, anchoring, bracing. No shortcuts. No prefab kits. They built it from nothing. Every time I checked on them, Caleb looked more like my father. Focused, steady, careful. They added a little deck, a trap door, painted it red and blue. Caleb named it the Watchtower, hung a pair of Dad's old army binoculars from a nail, and left a flashlight up there just in case. The night they finished it, Caleb begged to sleep outside. I gave in, checked on him twice. He was smiling in his sleep, light still on. That memory, 3 days ago, already felt 1,000 years old. I didn't file a police report, not yet. I knew how this worked in neighborhoods like ours. Gregory had money, friends on the HOA board. He'd twist the story until I was the aggressor. Say I put something dangerous next to his fence. Say his dog barked all night from stress. Say anything that gave him control of the narrative. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table for an hour, staring at the wall. Then I stood up, grabbed my keys, and drove 2 towns over. The man I met ran a landscaping supply store now. We hadn't spoken in nearly 5 years, but he owed me a favor, and he remembered why. "I'm not giving you anything illegal," he said, half joking. "Don't need illegal," I replied. "Just something that leaves a mark." I left with a 5-gallon bucket of fish emulsion, a roll of industrial plastic wrap, and a crowbar. The kind of tools that make people rethink their behavior. That night, Caleb didn't say much, just looked out the back window, eyes searching for the treehouse that was no longer there. "Why would someone do that?" he asked. I didn't lie. "I don't know, buddy." I waited until our street went dark, until Mary turned off the porch light and the poodle stopped yapping. Then I got to work. Wrapped the underside of Gregory's porch with plastic, nailed it tight, punctured a small hole, and poured the fish emulsion in slow. It pooled, soaked into the wood. The smell would come in waves, slow at first, then unbearable. Rotting fish, garbage, sewage. It would cling to every inch of siding. But that wasn't the best part. I took the second nameplate Caleb made for the watchtower, same paint, same handwriting. I changed the words. We see everything from here, and I hammered it into Gregory's front lawn under the window. Morning came like nothing had happened. I sat on my porch with coffee, like always. Gregory walked out at 7:30. His eyes went straight to the sign. Then the smell hit him. He gagged, called for Mary. She came out, turned right back inside. I watched him pace, call someone on his phone, then disappear back into the house. 2 days later, a hazmat cleaning service showed up. The next day, contractors started ripping out the porch boards. I heard shouting. Something about the smells and the insulation. It should have been over, but something in me stayed awake that night. Not because of fear, because I knew men like Gregory didn't stop. They escalated, and I wasn't going to let him catch me off guard again. If you've ever been ignored after giving something your heart, your time, your all, type 1. It was supposed to be my code. That's the first thing I thought when I saw the email. Subject, Project Phoenix Demo, Internal Presentation Deck Final, sent by Ray Monroe, my colleague, my so-called friend. I clicked the link. There it was, the back-end system I'd spent 2 months building, outlined, diagrammed, even bullet-pointed under his name. My code, my architecture, my sleepless nights. Not a single mention of me. I scrolled furiously. Every asset, every commit, every strategic note I'd written, duplicated into the presentation but credited entirely to him. I opened Slack. Me. Ray, did you send the Phoenix deck to leadership? Ray. Hey man, yeah, hope that's okay. I used some of our shared repo. Me. Shared? You mean my repo. You never even cloned it until 2 weeks ago. Ray. Hey, chill. It's a team effort, right? I didn't respond. I closed the laptop. Oh, and that's when I smelled it. Fish emulsion. Still lingering on my gloves from the night before. The next day they came. 2 police officers, one in uniform, the other plain clothes. Knocked on my door around 11 a.m. while I was working from home. Caleb was at school. My dad was out grabbing groceries. Mr. Harper? The plainclothes one asked. Yeah, what's this about? Mind if we come in? I hesitated. Sure. They walked slowly through the living room, their eyes scanning the pictures on the wall, the faint stain where Caleb had spilled juice a week ago. The uniformed one had a clipboard. The other pulled out a phone and showed me a picture. It was the sign. We see everything from here, hammered into Gregory Burgess's lawn. Did your son make this? The officer asked. I stared at the photo, then at him. I made the original with him, I said, for the treehouse. And did you recently put one like this in your neighbor's yard? No, I said. My voice didn't flinch. He didn't. The officer tilted his head slightly. The clipboard cop spoke next. Mr. Burgess claims you vandalized his property using hazardous substances. He's filing a report. I didn't answer. The plainclothes officer tucked the phone away. No charges for now, he said. But if anything else happens... Yeah, I interrupted. I'll be on the list. They nodded, left. I closed the door, leaned against it, and exhaled. My father was already outside by the time I joined him. He sat on the back porch, cigarette between his fingers. He hadn't smoked in years. I know it was you, he said after a long silence. I didn't answer. You think you're helping him, he added, but you're not. That kind of anger sticks to a kid. The silence, too. I stared at the stump of the treehouse. I didn't know how else to respond, I finally said. Sometimes, you don't. But I couldn't believe that. Not anymore. Silence doesn't scare men like Gregory. Paper trails do. That belief turned to fury when the Jefferson swing set was destroyed. They lived 2 houses down, nice couple in their 70s, watched their grandkids every weekend. The swing set was nothing fancy, just a wooden frame with 2 plastic seats and a small slide. One morning it was gone, chopped clean, left in pieces. Mr. Jefferson was shouting into his phone while his wife sobbed on their driveway. I didn't need to ask. I already knew who did it. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about property lines. It wasn't about permits. It was about power. Gregory wanted silence, stillness, control. He wanted the street to fold around his comfort like a fitted sheet. I walked to the Jeffersons' yard. Mr. Jefferson was struggling to carry a splintered beam. "Let me help," I said. He looked up, hands shaking. "We didn't ask permission," he muttered. "Said it cluttered the view. It was for our grandkids." I nodded, helped him carry it near the shed. Neither of us said anything else. That night, I sent a message in our neighborhood group chat. "If you've had run-ins with Gregory Burgess, I'm inviting you to a quiet talk at my place. No drama, just neighbors." 7 people showed up, 2 families with young kids, a single mom named Teresa, the Jeffersons, a newlywed couple who had received HOA warning letters for parking their car off-center. Every story, every single one, led back to Gregory. Noise complaints, paint color violations, anonymous calls to code enforcement. Even a fine for one woman's wind chime being too loud. "Why hasn't anyone pushed back?" I asked. "Because he knows how to stay just legal enough," Teresa said. "Just invisible enough." "Well," I said, "maybe it's time we make the invisible visible." We didn't plan revenge, we planned presence. The next day, every kid got a box of sidewalk chalk. Every driveway became a mural. The Jeffersons hung string lights along their fence. Someone played music just a little louder. A teen down the street practiced drums in his open garage. Teresa installed a garden gnome with speakers. But me? I rebuilt the treehouse. Not the same one. Bigger, brighter, bolder. It had a solar-powered motion light that lit up like a stage whenever someone passed through the yard. I made sure the angle faced Gregory's window. The first night it turned on, I stood on the porch, watching. He pulled his blinds down, hard. The neighborhood was glowing again. You could hear children laughing past 7 p.m. Imagine that. But I knew what was coming next. 1 week later, I woke up at 2:17 a.m. The sound was faint, a metallic clink, like something falling onto concrete. I slipped from bed, looked out the window. There he was, Gregory in all black, bolt cutters in hand, standing in my yard. His focus, the base of the rope ladder. He'd come around the back to avoid the motion sensor. I didn't think. I moved. Barefoot, heart pounding, I grabbed the old baseball bat from behind the door and stepped out into the cold night. He didn't hear me at first. But when he did, when he saw me, bat in hand, he froze. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, voice low, vibrating. It's a hazard," he stammered. "I was going to—" "You take one more step," I cut him off, "and I call the police." He stepped back. Once, twice. "I have a right to—" "No, Gregory, you don't. Not anymore. You come near my family again." I tightened my grip on the bat. "You'll wish I had called the cops instead. If you've ever been told to stay silent when you knew you were right." Type 2. I got the promotion denial email at 4:12 p.m. on a Friday. Subject: Internal Review, Role Assignment Update. I already knew what it said before I clicked. Ray Monroe had been promoted to lead developer on Project Phoenix. I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd used the phrase exceptional initiative and technical clarity, 2 things Ray had borrowed directly from my codebase, word for word, function for function. The internal system had scrubbed contributor tags during the integration phase, something I'd flagged weeks ago. Apparently, no one cared. I shut the laptop slowly. Not because I was calm, but because I wasn't. I looked at the rebuilt treehouse through the window. Caleb's silhouette was inside, legs swinging off the ledge. He was reading. The motion sensor light cast a glow around him like a stage spotlight. Gregory's curtains across the street didn't move, but I knew he was watching. They always watch, don't they? The restraining order came the next Monday. I was pulling weeds when a process server walked up in a cheap gray suit and said, "Ethan Harper?" I nodded. "You've been served." It was like a script. Cold. Efficient. The paperwork was ridiculous. Gregory claimed I was engaging in targeted harassment, encouraging public hostility, and using a treehouse-mounted spotlight to intimidate and surveil. The spotlight. That was his big smoking gun. He'd even printed photos, grainy night shots of the motion-activated beam hitting his second-floor blinds, and somehow a judge had approved a temporary protection order. The terms? I couldn't go within 100 feet of his property, which conveniently included a huge chunk of my own backyard, including the treehouse. That night, I sat on the front porch as Caleb wandered up, baseball in hand. He paused when he saw the papers on the table. "Can I not play outside anymore?" he asked. I hesitated. "Not near the treehouse," for a little while. "But it's ours." "I know. Did we do something wrong?" "No," I said, but my voice cracked anyway. Later that night, Dad joined me on the back steps. He handed me a beer without a word. After a while, he said, "You should have known he'd go legal." I did. He took a sip. "You want to beat a man like that?" he said. "You don't fight with fists. You bleed him slow, the way he's bled this neighborhood for years." I didn't say anything, but the words stuck. Work didn't help. The following Tuesday, Ray's face appeared in a Slack message from upper management. He was thanking the team for collaboration and technical trust on the Phoenix release. I scrolled down and saw snippets of my original documentation, renamed, reformatted, but unmistakably mine. I dug deeper, checked Git logs, noticed pull requests from my account were merged under Ray's name. A quiet approval flag that looked innocent to the untrained eye. But I'd written those commits. He'd used a tool to reassign metadata, some script, low-level manipulation, not enough to raise alarms, but enough to cast doubt on authorship. I forwarded everything to HR. Their response? "We appreciate your concerns and are reviewing the matter. Please refrain from further internal speculation." Right. Keep it quiet. Don't rock the boat. Don't be the angry one. Sounded familiar. That Friday, Caleb asked if we could rebuild the ladder to the treehouse, even though we couldn't use it yet. "Why?" I asked. He shrugged. "Because rebuilding's better than staring at what's broken." Smart kid. We bought wood, drilled holes, laughed a little. But the glow wasn't there, not yet. Because rebuilding isn't the same as forgiving. Gregory didn't stop. We'd hear him muttering when he walked past the fence. Filing HOA complaints again. One neighbor got cited for excessive decorative lighting. Another for seasonal sidewalk clutter, a Halloween pumpkin. He was reasserting dominance, but this time people were watching him too. The Jeffersons added a porch swing. Teresa started hosting backyard movie nights. Someone set up a little free library box on the corner, painted it neon yellow. When Gregory complained, no one listened, but he wasn't finished. 3 weeks into the restraining order, I woke up to a voicemail from our HOA president. "Ethan, we've received new footage from Mr. Burgess's Ring doorbell. He's alleging multiple infractions, including loitering and intentional glare intrusion. Please schedule a review hearing." Glare intrusion. I couldn't even laugh. That night, I added something new to the treehouse. A camera. I mounted it behind the shed, angled discreetly at the base of the structure. Gregory had tried to destroy things before. He'd likely try again. Only this time I wanted proof. I didn't have to wait long. 2:17 a.m. Again. Same clink, same black clothes, same bolt cutters. But this time, when the motion light came on, he paused. He scanned the yard, didn't see the camera. He cut one rope rung before I stepped out with my phone in hand. "Smile for the camera," I said. Gregory flinched, dropped the cutters, started to speak, then turned and ran through the side yard. I didn't chase. I went back inside, uploaded the footage, and sent it to my attorney. The next morning I filed a counter-complaint. The police came again. This time, they asked Gregory more questions than they asked me. Still, he wasn't arrested. Still, he wasn't charged. But the balance was shifting. The next weekend, I sat on the treehouse deck with Caleb. He was sketching designs for a pulley system, something to deliver snacks from the ground. "I don't think he's ever going to stop, is he?" he asked. "No," I said, "but neither will we." We didn't need to yell, we just needed to exist, loudly, proudly, and legally. And next, we'd take the fight somewhere Gregory couldn't twist it. City records, zoning maps, building codes. We weren't going to break the law, we were going to use it. If you've ever been punished for doing what was right. Type 3. The day I saw Ray Monroe escorted out by corporate security, I didn't feel vindicated. I felt tired, but I also knew I had won. The alert came through the internal Slack. Project Phoenix was under internal audit. HR sent a follow-up that all major contributors would have to re-verify authorship of code and technical documents. I had made that happen. 2 weeks earlier, I'd compiled every relevant timestamp, IP log, source control conflict, and manual commit tied to my credentials. I attached screenshots showing the metadata swap, the little tool Ray used to reattribute contributions. Not sophisticated, just sneaky enough to fool the uninformed. I submitted the package anonymously to the company's internal ethics team and CC'd the external digital integrity ombudsman. Ray never saw it coming. He'd weaponized silence. I had weaponized data. But as satisfying as it was to watch him disappear behind glass doors, cardboard box in hand, it didn't change what was happening on my street. Gregory Burgess had turned Maplewood Heights into a neighborhood of rules without reason, where permits were power and smiling neighbors walked on eggshells. So I took Dad's advice, bleed him slow. Step 1, records request. I filed for every improvement made to Gregory's property over the last 10 years, deck expansions, fence replacements, driveway alterations, even landscaping variances. The city clerk didn't even blink. When the documents came in, they told a story, one Gregory never expected anyone to read, a retaining wall with no inspection record, a patio extension past the allowable setback limit, a fence built 6 inches into public easement, a shed with no permit at all. Alone, none of these were a death blow, but together, they were a symphony of hypocrisy. I didn't confront him. Instead, I joined a local contractor group on Facebook and asked hypothetical questions about fence lines, drainage requirements, and retroactive variances. I made sure a few city code enforcement officers saw the posts. One even replied, "We'll look into it." And they did. 2 weeks later, I watched from my porch as 2 inspectors walked Gregory's yard with clipboards in hand. They measured, photographed, took notes. He followed them like a storm cloud, his voice raised and face red. The next week, a violation notice arrived, then a second, then a formal hearing letter. Meanwhile, the street turned colder to him. No one waved. Kids stopped playing near his driveway. Someone egged his mailbox. I didn't know who. I didn't ask. For the first time, he was the one looking over his shoulder. I didn't gloat. I documented. Every HOA complaint he filed, I cross-referenced. Every violation he accused others of, I checked for his own infractions. Gregory had always used the system like a scalpel. Now I was using it like a mirror. And that's when Mary left him. I watched from the kitchen window as she packed a red SUV. She moved fast, no hesitation. 2 neighbors helped her. Gregory shouted something as she slammed the driver's door. She didn't respond. A few days later, a for sale sign went up on their lawn. It didn't feel like a win. Until I saw Caleb sitting in the rebuilt treehouse with a sketchbook, legs swinging off the deck again. He was humming to himself. That was the first time he hummed in weeks. Still, Gregory had one last move. At the variance hearing, he argued the patio was grandfathered in, that the fence was mismeasured, that the inspectors were biased. He called me a vindictive neighbor encouraging civil harassment. I wasn't even in the room, but my files were. They spoke louder than I ever could. The committee ruled against him. He had to tear down the patio or face escalating daily fines. The fence had to be moved, and the retaining wall recertified. He didn't speak to me again. Not a glance, not a threat. Just paperwork taped to his front door week after week. One evening, I sat outside with Dad. We shared a beer, listening to the hum of cicadas and the faint giggle of children playing again. "He's leaving," I said quietly. Dad didn't smile, just nodded. "You win." I didn't answer. Because it didn't feel like winning. It felt like reclaiming something we should have never lost, our right to exist. A week later, the moving trucks came. No Mary, no friends. Just Gregory pacing around in that same stiff button-down shirt, trying to look like a man in control. He never looked back at the treehouse, but I watched him until the last box was gone. That night, Caleb joined me on the deck. The sky was orange with summer haze. He looked at the empty house across the street, then down at the yard where the old boards used to lie. "Is he leaving because of us?" he asked. I thought for a long time. "Technically, yes," I said, "but not because of anything you did. He made bad choices. People stopped letting him get away with it." Caleb nodded, looking out over the neighborhood like it finally belonged to him again. "I still haven't told him everything. Maybe I never will. But as long as he feels safe, it was worth it. Because peace doesn't come from staying quiet. Peace comes from knowing how to fight without losing yourself. If you believe peace isn't given, it's earned, protected, and defended. Type 4.